On your first hit of cocaine, your brain unleashes a chemical surge 10 times stronger than what it produces during sex. But within just 7 days, that same brain will begin carving channels of obsession that not even sleep or loved ones can interrupt. Most people think cocaine works like coffee on steroids, but what if I told you the truth is far more disturbing? What if the real changes happen days after the high wears off? The clock starts with your first line, and what happens in those next 168 hours might change how you see pleasure, addiction, and your own mind forever. By the end of this video, you'll know why cocaine doesn't just stimulate the brain, but rewires it in ways that mimic trauma. You'll learn what happens to your dopamine levels on day 3, and why that might be the most dangerous moment, not day 1. You'll discover the hidden link between coke and nightmares, how a single weekend binge creates long-term cravings, and what shocking MRI scans of cocaine users reveal even after a week of sobriety. Stick around, because the truth about how quickly cocaine hijacks your mind is nothing like what we've been told. Most people imagine cocaine as a short-term thrill, a powerful rush that comes and goes. But the real trap starts with what you don't feel. In the first 24 hours after use, your brain enters what experts call a neurochemical aftershock. You're not crashing, you're recalibrating. And during this window, something unexpected is happening. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making, starts dimming its activity. This is not just about impulse control, it's about how the brain rewires your very sense of reward. You might feel fine, alert even, but your brain has already started making dangerous trades beneath your awareness. The question is, why? Because cocaine doesn't just spike dopamine. It floods the synapses so massively that your brain panics. It starts pulling back receptors, lowering its natural dopamine production, and weakening its baseline joy response. In other words, it begins adapting to the storm by dulling its own sensitivity. This adaptation happens fast. By day 2, users often report feeling emotionally hollow, even if their bodies seem energized. The brain has already decided, normal pleasures aren't enough anymore. That Starbucks coffee, that funny meme, that hug from someone you love, they hit different, less. And here's where it gets dangerous. The brain remembers how easy it was to feel amazing just 48 hours ago, and it's already mapping a route back to that false high, even if you're not aware of it. Now it's day 3. This is the point where things quietly tip from chemical to behavioral. You're not reaching for cocaine because you crave the high, you're reaching for it because you feel incomplete without it. Brain imaging studies show that by this stage, neural activity starts lighting up in the same areas triggered by trauma and loss. Your brain reads the absence of cocaine as a threat. Cortisol rises. Sleep gets fragmented. And the strangest part? Many users report vivid, emotionally charged dreams filled with panic, euphoria, or distorted memories. This isn't coincidence. Cocaine alters REM cycles in a way that mimics PTSD. Your subconscious isn't detoxing, it's rehearsing. Every time you dream, your brain rehearses the urgency to use again. You wake up haunted, chasing a ghost that feels like relief. But that ghost is getting smarter. It's starting to wear your face. By day 4, the brain begins to rewire its motivational circuits. And here's the part no one talks about. Even if you promise yourself, consciously, that you're done, your brain has arranged a different plan behind your back. The nucleus accumbens the reward hub, starts syncing up with the amygdala, your fear center. What does that mean? It means your brain starts pairing the absence of cocaine with emotional discomfort and even mild paranoia. Users often talk about vague anxiety, a shadow that follows them through the day. But it's not just psychological, it's chemical dissonance. The brain's motivational GPS is now skewed. Ordinary goals lose their shine. Productivity, relationships, hobbies, all displaced by a quiet but persistent whisper, you need more. The trap isn't craving, it's confusion. Your brain can't tell the difference between solving a problem and repeating the same mistake. At this point, the addiction isn't about chasing pleasure. It's about escaping the growing sense that something's missing, and only one thing feels like it can fill that gap. Day 5 is when the real betrayal happens, because this is when your brain, now fully rewired, begins to mask its own dependency. You feel more like yourself, maybe even motivated. But this is a dangerous illusion. Underneath that sense of stability, brain scans show elevated activity in your anterior cingulate cortex, the same region involved in obsessive-compulsive behavior. Translation: your mind is starting to plot, not from desperation but from calculated memory. It remembers the ease, the pleasure, the solution cocaine seemed to offer just days ago, and it begins forecasting when and how to get back there. This is where casual users become repeat users, often without realizing they've crossed a line. You regain focus, but only if it's steering toward another hit. You can go to work, have dinner with family, smile during a conversation, but in the background, your brain is simulating relapse like a video game you never meant to play. The haunting part? You think you're fine. Day 6 is where the grip tightens, because now, your brain has begun confusing cocaine with survival. Studies from the National Institute on Drug Abuse reveal that the brainstem, a region responsible for basic life functions like breathing and heartbeat, begins to show altered activity patterns after repeated cocaine exposure. That means the brain no longer categorizes cocaine as a luxury, or even a want. It files it under need, and needs trigger persistence. You start noticing patterns, subtle urges that arise at the same time of day, in the same environments, after the same emotional cues. This is conditioning at a biological level. It's not that you're thinking about using, it's that your brain has already decided to want it before you're even part of the conversation. And here's the twist. By trying to resist, you actually make the loop stronger. The more you try not to think about it, the more those neural pathways are reinforced. It's like your refusal confirms the drug's importance, a paradox loop. And by this point, your brain doesn't just want cocaine. It's prioritizing it over long-term memory formation, emotional processing, and impulse regulation. The architecture of desire, once built for connection, achievement, meaning, is now rerouted to one destination, over and over again. By day 7, something chilling happens. Your brain stops reacting to cocaine as a stimulant and starts treating it like identity. PET scans show that even after a week of abstinence, habitual users still display abnormal metabolic activity in key brain areas linked to awareness and self-perception. That means your thoughts, emotions, even your self-image start subtly aligning with drug-seeking logic. You don't just want it, you believe it fits who you are. And that belief isn't conscious. It leaks in through cravings disguised as ideas. I work better this way, I'm more fun, I'm more me. But here's the final twist. The brain's own defense systems, like the insula, which detects harm, begin tuning out the internal alarms. It's as if your mind sets its own trap and then forgets it's been baited. So when you look back on the week, you don't see a chemical seduction or neurological hijack. You see a string of choices. But they weren't really yours, not fully. And once you realize that, you start to understand the real cost of cocaine isn't just addiction, it's authorship. Who's writing your story now? So, why does all of this matter? Because it exposes a terrifying truth. Cocaine doesn't just hijack your pleasure system, it rewrites your perception of who you are and what matters. It turns your brain from a compass into a carousel, spinning towards short-term relief and away from long-term meaning. If this transformation can happen in just 7 days, imagine what's unfolding in the brains of long-term users. But here's the bigger picture. If one substance can rewire identity so fast, what else in our environment, our habits, our screens, our routines is doing the same thing? The drug may leave your system in days, but the blueprint it leaves behind? That can last for years. So ask yourself, how much of what you want is truly your choice? And how much was installed without your permission? And if this much can happen in 1 week, without a needle, without a visible wound, what does that say about the vulnerability of the brain itself? The truth is, cocaine reveals a frightening design flaw. Our reward system was built for a world that no longer exists. It was meant to nudge us towards survival, connection, growth. Now it can be hijacked, not just by drugs, but by anything engineered to spike our neurochemistry. This isn't just about cocaine, it's about understanding how quickly the machinery of your mind can be reprogrammed. So the next time you catch yourself chasing a feeling, ask, is this really me or just another loop I didn't choose to install? What makes cocaine particularly insidious isn't just its chemical power, it's how silently it blends into the patterns of thought you already trust. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't kick down the door, it replaces the lock. And once it's in, it begins dressing itself in the language of your own voice. I deserve this, I've been good, just once more, and then I'll stop. That's the final stage of its manipulation. Cocaine doesn't just take over your brain, it uses your brain to convince you it never left. So, if you've ever wondered why some people can leave it behind while others spiral, the answer may not lie in willpower, but in how deep the rewrite went before they realized they were no longer the author. And that might be the most haunting lesson of all. Sometimes, the enemy doesn't look like a drug, it looks like you. So if you're still watching, take a moment. It's not about shame or fear, it's about awareness. Because knowledge is the only real antidote to manipulation. Cocaine hijacks not just neurons, but narratives. And once you know the script, you can tear it up. Whether you've used or never touched the stuff, understanding how addiction rewires the sense of self can change the way we judge others and the way we protect ourselves. This isn't just a story about a dangerous drug. It's a warning about how fragile identity can be in a world designed to exploit our chemistry. You're not powerless, but only if you stay awake. So, what are the other scripts playing out in your mind right now, and who wrote them? Because in the end, that's the real danger, not that cocaine exists, but that our minds are editable, that memory can be bent, that cravings can wear disguises, that the very thoughts convincing us we're in control might be planted by something else entirely. And if one white powder can do this in 7 days, then we owe it to ourselves to question what other forces are shaping our minds without our consent. The next time you feel an urge that seems to come out of nowhere, ask yourself who benefits if I act on this. Because sometimes, protecting your brain isn't about resisting temptation. It's about recognizing whose voice is speaking inside your head and deciding, finally, to write your own lines. That's not paranoia, that's strategy. The companies designing our media, the platforms curating our attention, even the foods engineered to create bliss points, they're all playing the same neurochemical game cocaine mastered long ago. Hijack the reward loop, bypass rational thought, and sell it back to you as choice. The reason this matters, why this video exists, is because once you understand how quickly your brain can be edited, you start to protect it differently. Not with fear, but with intention. You start asking harder questions about what you consume, who you trust, and why certain urges never seem to go away. In a world where everything is engineered to spike dopamine, awareness isn't optional, it's survival. And maybe, just maybe, the most rebellious act left isn't to resist temptation, but to recognize it before it shows up wearing your face. So here's your invitation. Take back the pen. Because whether it's cocaine or content, cravings or clicks, the battleground isn't out there, it's in here. Every choice you make either reinforces an old loop or writes a new one. And now that you've seen what 7 days can do, you're holding the one thing cocaine and every other manipulative force can't tolerate: clarity. You know the game, you've seen the system, and most importantly, you've learned that your brain isn't weak, it's programmable. Which means, with the right awareness, it's also reprogrammable. What you do with that power, that's your next chapter. So ask yourself, not just today but every day, is this path mine or was it paved for me? Choose wisely, because your story isn't finished, it's just beginning. And if there's one takeaway to hold on to, it's this: the most dangerous rewires are the invisible ones. Cocaine may seem like a quick escape, but in just 7 days it can reprogram your brain's logic, emotion, and identity, and do it so subtly, you mistake it for free will. This isn't fear-mongering, it's a sober look at how easily the mind can be rewritten, not just by chemicals, but by anything engineered to feel good fast. But now that you know, you're no longer an easy target. You've seen how the story gets edited. And that means you can choose not just what you do, but who you become. Don't just fight for control of your brain, take authorship of your life. Because in the end, this isn't just a discussion about cocaine, it's a call to decode the hidden scripts running in all our minds. The drug is just one high-octane example of how powerfully and quickly our neural circuits can be hijacked by artificial highs. But whether it's a substance, a screen, a like button, or a marketing loop, we're all vulnerable to invisible rewrites. The only defense is to stay curious, stay questioning, and recognize that clarity is not a gift, it's a discipline. So next time you feel pulled towards something you can't quite explain, pause, trace the feeling, ask, who profits if I follow it? And then decide, do I take the shortcut or do I take the pen? Because your mind isn't just programmable, it's writable. And the author? That's still you if you're willing to fight for the role. Thanks for watching. If this video made you think differently, even slightly, then mission accomplished. We don't just make content, we make armor for your brain. So if you want to go deeper, hit subscribe. Because the next video is going to reveal what dopamine detoxing really does to your motivation and why most people are doing it completely backwards. Until then, stay curious, stay conscious, and remember, awareness isn't a one-time switch. It's a muscle. Keep flexing it.